So this is Marko, Pogacnik. I come from Slavic world. I live north of Trieste, to the most western points that Slavs arrived, to the border with Italy. So I will take first 15 minutes to explain my approach to the team. I am very interested in this triangle that comes here again and again to speech, which is the triangle between art, science, and spirituality. And I work in this connection. I come from land art and conceptual work in art of the 60s, but I am searching all the time a way how art can become creative in the world, be it in the ecological sense or social or political sense. So I developed different ways how this can be done. Coming from land art, of course I'm interested in mainly in ecology. I am very unhappy about the ecology as it is today, because it is a daughter of sciences. And the modern science, as you know, is bound to the paradigm of the 18th century, which says that what exists is only that we can touch and prove objectively, like objectivity. And for me, as artist, this is a kind of crime, because about 90% of reality is being through this excluded from research, but mainly also from the experience. I mean 90% of reality that I know it from my work. My work is called sometimes geomancy, but I don't like so much this word. It comes from the Middle Age sciences. There was first generation of sciences like alchemy, astrology, geomancy, which later changed into alchemy changed into chemistry, and the geomancy changed into geology, which means geomancy means looking at the landscape and its invisible dimensions included. And geology means, of course, logical look upon the earth and the landscape as something that is objectively out of our reach. So there, in this paradigm, I see the source of the contemporary problems that humanity has got in ecological sense with what is called climate change and the whole ecological catastrophes. Because we have lost inner bodily, individual, personal connection, also collective connection to life, and especially, of course, to our home planet. We were so much searching for objectivity that we became objects of a destiny that we don't understand. So my research is in these realms that are usually called causal, which means that are beyond our comprehension with the five senses, but not out of the reach of our experience, because a human being has, besides the five senses, also other possibilities to perceive reality, which is connected to bodily perception, connected to being present, especially being connected. So it is, I'm working in the realm that is just opposite to the scientific paradigm that demands objectivity and a distance to reality. I work on the possibility to experience through connection. It is opposite. But this has nothing to do with esoterics, because it is a very scientific method that I use, and this method of perception, to describe it briefly, it starts with perceiving vibration. We know that everything is vibration, so this is the basic, no images, but being connected and perceiving vibration, let us say, of a place or a tree. And then the human consciousness is challenged to enter into the process and translate through resonance the vibration that we received, to translate into images or colors or feelings. And through this, the mind, the rational mind or logic, is capable to read it, to understand it. So it is for me, it is a scientific, provable process that is, everybody is able to go this kind of perception process. And I find it important because then we get experience of who this reality is. This means that I see reality as manifested world, not just as physical, touchable, but also it has two invisible dimensions. One dimension is called life. Nobody has ever seen life, but we are alive, and the tree is alive, and landscape is alive. So this, if we say about three-dimensional world as physical, then this would be a fourth dimension, which would not exist if we would not be alive. And then there is the next, which could be called the fifth dimension, which Teilhard de Chardin called noosphere, and we started to use this term, which means a sphere of consciousness. It is not just human consciousness. It is the consciousness of the planet, the consciousness of nature, the consciousness of a flower, and of course also human consciousness. And consciousness is invisible, but it is not possible to deny its existence. Even if we try to deny as humans the existence of consciousness within the rocks, or this is because of this demand of objectivity, which I consider the scientific objectivity. Excuse me, I consider as the greatest subjectivity, because this was created by a bunch of academics in the 18th century, and it is believed in, and we all through education, and we get it. It is a pattern that is being transferred. It started 5,000 years ago with patriarchal societies that didn't want us anymore to be connected to the essence and to nature, and then step by step a pattern developed that we believe is a reality, even if we know, since Einstein maybe, that all this is just light, which means vibration in its different frequencies and shades, but we still believe that this is objective reality. So not because I want to be better than science, but because I am so unhappy with what is going on with humanity and the planet and nature, so I take myself as artist the freedom to go into these realms and teach and work in these realms. I'm working a kind of therapy of landscape and cityscape through a kind of acupuncture with positioning stones on certain places and carving science through which, that I call cosmograms, through which I communicate with the place to support the self-healing energies of the place and to transform some traumas or blockades that are in a place. Or this work I do also with groups with other artistic tools like sounding or the dance ritual and imagination, special body exercises that I call Gaia touch. So this is my basic work that I do day to day. But this work would not be possible. To make it possible, I had to develop models of reality that are, as I said, beyond the physical ideas of physical world. So I am working in a 12-dimensional model of the world. I get it through my experience working with the places that are deeply traumatized, and I had to go deeper and deeper to find the causes, to bring a healing process, and I didn't understand nothing. Spaces opened, step by step, I had to develop a model where so that I can exactly understand what level it is, how it came into being, such a traumatic situation in a place, like through a war or distortion of the landscape. I was very inspired in the 80s. I met a German physicist and mathematician, Burkhard Heim, a pupil of Heisenberg, famous physician, German physician, and he developed the idea of a threefold space dimensions. So one is those five that I was telling before, which is the manifested world. But what Burkhard Heim brought in is the cause, a new understanding of the causal world, that behind the manifested reality, there are patterns or matrix of different phenomena that then appear in form. They are behind the scene, so to say. And according to these patterns and beings who embody them, then different aspects of manifested world form and become present. So I understood I cannot do anything essential in the sense of healing places if I don't go behind the scene into the 6, 7, 8 dimension where the causes are for certain distortions, or better, where the matrices, the patterns of reality have been distorted through a very strong traumatic push like when thousands of people get fear and hate in a battle, or so then this push goes deeper and deeper in these causal dimensions, and people feel unhappy in a place. Life is not full. They cannot live full life, and this cannot be changed if not going that far back. So that I tell this so that you understand that this is not my superstition to go into these dimensions, but there is a need. I mean, healing, like alternative healing methods, do the same in the case of the human beings. They must go deep into the background of a person to find the causes for certain illnesses or problems that a person has. You see, my work is, I am consciously doing something which is complementary to the human medicine, because I realize that humanity is more and more concentrated on ourselves, and we lose consciousness that we are on a planet which is equally complex as a human being is, which is equally full of consciousness, let me say like this, that ancient cultures called Mother Earth, but I don't mean the Mother Earth pattern. I mean that humanity was invited to this planet, to make a very special experience that this planet is offering, which is going as conscious spiritual beings going into matter and through matter. It took us about 10 million years to come through matter, as you know. This was a very difficult process, and here we are now. Now we came through. We do whatever we want in the matter. You know, this is also the end of this process. We cannot go further. We are fully here. We are able to create, to think in all possible, to feel, to be present, or to destroy and do harm to other beings, incredible harm. Both sides. This is the end of this path. At this point, something very special happened in my life. This was 1997 in autumn. I was since 20 years working this work, so to say, on a planetary scale. But that night, I had a very special dream. I dreamt that there was a big square and hundreds of people are going, following their tasks or purposes over this. And I was running between them, and I was shouting one sentence. I was dreaming in Slovenia, but I shouted in German. I speak German also. So the sentence said, "The reality that you see around you does not exist anymore. What you see is only the memory of how the reality was." And nobody wanted to listen. So I continued running, and I was shouting more and more strongly, so that I awoke myself in the middle of the night. I jumped from the bed and I ran outside to see what happens with the space, with the reality. And what I found out, I am looking always on the Earth has its own, let us say, first aura and the energy level, which should be so high that we are standing in. Now it is much lower nowadays. And I looked, and this energy field was not up, but it was down. So it was like turned upside down situation. And it lasted for a week, and then it came back again. But this was the reason. This was such a strong experience and message that I was shouting, that I started to be aware, and I am a lucky man because I have a daughter Anna, whom you may know. She writes also books and does work in this area as I do. But her work is based on communicating with the, let us say, 8th dimension, which means with the angelic world, which translated in the logical language means noosphere of the universe. It is a network of consciousness that is part of the normal part of the universe, and it has, of course, a relationship also to the earthly spheres. So I asked her for clarification, and then this process started. That we got to know that the Earth is going into a new phase of its development, and leaving behind the reality as we know it. And since then, and this is more than 20 years, I constantly try to follow this process, which I think started 2,000 years ago, approximately, with what we call, we say after Christ, or after our age, as a beginning of our age. In effect, I think this is beginning of our age 2,000 years ago, like we are now in 2019, which means 2019 years after the process of transition of the Earth into a new chapter of its development started. But what happened in 1997, I believe, is that this process broke through to the manifested, embodied level. And since then, there are many phases that I try also to write down in my books. And often I have no understanding, so dreams help me. Dreams help me again and again to understand what is going on. And to define what is going on, or how we were, with my daughter, in fact, 2 daughters collaborate with this, how we understand it, that the earth of the element earth, 4 elements, they are those elements through which the reality comes into being. And that we understood that the earth is moving from the earth of the earth element, which is the most dense form of embodying, is moving into earth of the air element, which is the element of consciousness, which would mean that what we experience now as a physical, material reality does not disappear, but it is transformed into a reality where consciousness is the factor that is of decisive, my English, factor. Which means that what we see as or experience as physical reality may not change, but becomes of consciousness, which in fact is already like whatever we see is only light, and it is our consciousness that translates so that we can see walls. If a wall is hard. The wall is not hard because it is light, vibration. This is information that it is hard. Everything. This is just information, but embodied in element Earth. This information becomes hard. We experience it, and now when it is transferred on the level of consciousness, it is still that, but in a different way, because there is a possibility of opening to other dimensions, because in the element Earth, the density is greater and greater, and finally we find ourselves confined to this three-dimensional world. And in this sense, science has right, and I am absolutely fan of the crazy modern science. But I see it as a past, with this new reality, which would be the same, so to say. The paths are open for what I call or multidimensionality, that there are other levels, beings, evolutions that are parallel, can also be present within our world, in the sense of communicating, creating together. This concerns also our world of ancestors and descendants, the so-called spiritual world. We are now, like we say goodbye to a person that dies and goes into another dimension, and there is no connection, the grave. This is awful and should not be like this. This will not be anymore in this air element Earth, because there, what I call interdimensional portals. There will be always interdimensional portals where the spheres intersect of both worlds, a world of the living human beings and world of dead. Let us say they are not the dead. They live in another dimension. So there will be possibility to now, you know how difficult it is to come from there to here with the whole birth process in the mother womb. And so this may change, I don't know, but basically what is important is that us as adult persons and others there can communicate and work together, because these are two different states of consciousness that can perfectly complement. But consciousness is very airy. It's very airy. It doesn't bring form. So I think there should be also brought in an aspect of embodiment. Now consciousness is embodied in matter, and what now happens is that it starts to be embodied in water. Water has incredible ability to store information. Years ago, I knew that the University in Milano had research that proves that water is much, much better in storing information than silica. But we cannot use it yet. But I see it now, the Earth is using it. She is transferring all fractals of reality onto the watery information in waters. This means that the reality which is now stiff is caught in three-dimensional matter will become more movable. This enables then pluridimensionality. Pluridimensionality, I envision, or the present situation of the Earth, I envision not as one sphere, one ball, but as cluster, what in chemistry is called cluster. These are reality that are autonomous, and yet they are interlinked. They are interlinked. So what is now the world of the dead, or what we call more properly the spiritual world, our ancestors and the case, they live in their own world, which is, according to my experience, distributed among our material world, because these units of cluster go one into the other. So I find it somewhere in the sea, deep in the sea, or in a mountain, or in a space above us, air space. It is distributed, but connection is very difficult. So in water makes possible that there is the whole information is there, the reality is there, and yet it moves as needed, and it connects. We have the problem of that connections are being lost more and more, connection with nature, with the divinity. But I see astrologically, this is the Aquarius age. Aquarius is a sign of air element, but carries water and spills water. And I think this is very exact symbol of where we are moving now, which means the age where consciousness is the basic element, but embodied in water that holds the information, and maybe you see it because the nature becomes more buoyant. There is more light. We are constantly being told that because of the climate change, the state of nature is going down, being distorted, but I see also the opposite. This is true, of course, but I see also the opposite, that the nature is much more present, and the earth is much more present from day to day. The revelation of St. John, which is a kind of, for me, a pass from 2,000 years ago, featuring the past into the future, describes this state that instead of stones, it is called New Jerusalem. This has not to do with Jerusalem as a place, but with new, which means a new reality. That new reality is from semi-precious stones, which translated from a symbol means that the matter is not anymore so dense, that the inner light or presence of different dimensions could not shine through. And this is why the nature is more and more beautiful, and has kind of light, if you look, very subtle, but also very beautiful. How I would then present the present moment is that there are two processes running parallel. One is of decomposing the old reality, let us say. The element of Earth reality is being decomposed very carefully, because otherwise we would be very easily smashed in this process. So you can see again and again come problem, no, ecological catastrophes in the four elements, or big waters or big fires, earthquakes, and volcanoes. This is decomposing, and parallel to it goes composing, creating new conditions for the future development, which can be seen not only in the landscape as I was describing, or I didn't yet describe enough, maybe. So this composing first could be seen through something that I call islands of light. So there are somewhere in nature, even in cities, there are like fractals of new reality, holographic pieces of new reality where you come in and it is so beautiful and very special. What is it? So these are like seeds. The old reality, so to say, is still in force, even if it does not exist anymore. Is still in force, but these seeds are something that is like seeds for the future. That slowly now we are in a phase when they get interconnected like a network, and so this we can expect also that is the time to we can
time as well.
Huh?
I want to do Q&A time as well.
My time has gone. Yeah. But we started later. So
time for question and answer.
1 minute. So a kind of, it is being networked, this, and then also Gaia is developing a new generation of elemental beings. Elemental beings are fractals of her consciousness working everywhere in nature, in human world, and to keep life going according to its matrix. And there is a new generation which isn't anymore connected to the four elements, but they have a knowledge how to communicate and co-create with human beings. This is also so. This to round it up. This is an optimistic way to see what is called climate change and the dangers that come, and there is a strong counterforce to this change, because this change is radical that is going on, and those who have power and money, and they are in great fear to lose it, because they feel that it is not anymore real. The reality, we believe, they believe that still exists, is not anymore real, and there is a big fear, and this fear is being then transported into this idea of climate change and how difficult this will be for human beings. But this is all rubbish, because this is all expression of fear of change. But through this, majority of humanity is held back, not understanding, not being connected to what goes on with this big, this cosmic change, and through this, Gaia is lacking collaborators. So she would like to bring this process through without cataclysms, as this happened in the past, with the help of human consciousness, because we are now developed so much that we can understand the change and go with it, of course through our inner processes mainly, go with it, and also connect with each other, and through this create a kind of path that Gaia can use for these transformation processes. So, my time has gone. This is a big thing. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We need some time for questions. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We did a walk with Marko yesterday, and it was very special. And he's also doing a workshop, the second workshop of the afternoon today and tomorrow to work in the surrounding areas. And we have about 6 or 7 minutes, I think, for Q&A. 10 minutes.
Yes, please.
You spoke earlier on how we got disconnected long ago. Can you say something about how we got disconnected?
How we are disconnected?
How we got disconnected.
I don't understand the question.
You said something about how long ago we got disconnected from
Long ago.
How did that happen?
This happened through the change from the feminine to the masculine civilization. The Neolithic age was an age of feminine culture. Not that women were ruling, because feminine cannot rule. It embraces, but the principle was to embrace the whole reality. And this cultures for 5,000 years, they didn't know war. There are no weapons ever found. Didn't know war, but then we had to experience the opposite side, which is the masculine, and the masculine has a task to hold focus. All other, the women are doing. No, this is a joke. But basically, and through this, because now if both together work, it's perfectly. But if only masculine starts, so there are strong kings and rulers and concentration of wealth, and the hierarchies, the religions went into this with their hierarchies, and so we were more and more disconnected. This makes us disconnected. And now with this change, I think we go into a partnership civilization. This is also one aspect of this change, where the masculine, the feminine have their own roles that are complementary and work together. And I think this is also visible that this happens in many places. People start to live like this.
Yeah, thank you for this lecture. I like it. Yeah, and I was reminded of Joseph Beuys, who wanted to explain to a dead rabbit the modern art. Yeah, and so also nature was in his performance. Yeah, and I would like to ask you what you are telling us. Is it now a work of art, or your theory, or is it science, or how would you call this perspective?
We are entering an age where we have to learn to be at the same time artists and scientists, but also at the same time performance in art, let us say, those who do, and there are no spectators in the ancient sense, but we collaborate. So there is a new relationship between what is now separated. So, for example, I do my artwork always in groups. Be it like I will be doing it today or tomorrow afternoon, or when carving big projects, I work always with other people who are tuned to this kind of work. I don't know if I got it, what you wanted to ask.
Hello, and first, thank you for what you say. And I have one question for you. I was following directly and indirectly the Greta movement and the new generation of young that are gathering themselves to shout as you did in your dream or something.
Yeah.
Yes, but sometimes I wonder, thanks to, you clarify me a little bit today, this kind of disconnection is between us, my generation, for example, I'm 35, and them. And every time I think, how can I help them? How can I behave to help them and be not more, to be connected with me also, no? And how can I be more connected with them? And I just want to ask, from your point of view, that you see more than I can see, in which way we can collaborate with them? If my generation that is older, it can do something special for them. Thank you.
Yeah, one aspect of this process of change is also that souls come that make a vow that they will help in this process. This is more and more they are coming in, and when they come down, they see a reality that is closed for them out of this fear and making conscious blockades to the change. So probably sometimes they listen to us, but usually not. They go their crazy ways often, but I think they will, their purpose why they came will be activated in the proper moment. Our task is, in a way, prepare the ambience for them to be able to execute the role why they came to the earth. We are preparing a kind of consciousness space for them.
Marko, some years ago you wrote an interesting book on the elemental, this being which, according to you, are still around. You see them. Are they still around? Do you see still them, and do they tell you something?
Yes, I mentioned before that there is a change also going in the world of elemental beings, that they are being prepared. They have a kind of study projects. Gaia and her helpers, they are teaching who human beings are, how is their way of behaving, how is their way of communicating. So there is a new generation. They have a color blue. They are recognized by the color blue of these beings that are distributed around to waiting for human beings to be open for communication and collaboration. And what we said, it needs more to collaborate with Gaia, and in effect, it needs to collaborate with them, because they are fractals, holographic units of Gaia consciousness that are embodied in subtle matter, and they are around. So there is there is a change going also there, and a very very optimistic because they represent, or yes, symbol that Gaia is not leaving us or sending away, but that this is also the chance for this planet and its consciousness and beings to move a step further in collaboration with human beings, which are very special beings, having our own capacity to create, and those beings who connect all different dimensions, very special.
Do you still see them?
Yes, yes, I do.
Also around here?
Yeah, here is a problem that the ambience are more and more dense, created through our civilization that is going more quickly, and so it is more difficult to approach them. But like yesterday, we were at this 500 years old tree. There are such places where they are like windows to look into this world.
Time for one last question.
One else.
You said that you do your work in groups, and I'm wondering, as an artist, when you are addressing a group in which people are not accustomed to working with subtle energies, how do you insulate yourself from those who may not be able to receive what you wish to communicate?
I see artwork as work in progress at this time, different forms of art in progress, and also when I invite, always open, who wants to come is all right. And then, but I need to be conscious that people are on different levels of presence, let us say. So I introduce exercises so that they can cope with the work, but I also noticed that in the last 10 years, people are already moving with this changing process, and first it looks like we are strangers, but after 2-3 hours, we are collaborators, which I understand that our awareness holds us back, but in effect, as incarnated souls, we already move with the new, and we are maybe 80% in the new, but the rational level holds us like back. And I need just to work with people for the beginning so that they they lose their fear and get a touch of reality, and then they know this is real and go with. Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
I think our time has gone. Thank you. Thank you.